What's up, everybody? Appreciate you for tuning in to On the Ball. We are on Thursday, but still have a great show lined up for you. Appreciate you tuning in. We're going to get into some NBA talk. Obviously, playoffs are in full swing. We're into the second round. We have some interesting trends that we're seeing in these series. We'll go through that. Obviously, I'll talk about Jaylen Brown. He's creating a stir each day, it seems like, with whatever. So we'll get into that and some of the rumors that are being created out there. And we've got to talk about Aaron Rodgers, a favorite of the show, because there is some news kind of with him and next season. But before we get into all that, got Brett here with me. Not guarding the 2, he's guarding the 3. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I am doing terrific. I am excited to go through every single Jaylen Brown trade rumor and request and explain to you guys why he's somehow going to end up on the Los Angeles Lakers, because that's where we have to mock every big superstar, dude. Wait, I'm sorry. ESPN loves the Knicks, so we also got to mock him to the Knicks. Yes. So don't worry. By the way, kidding. We're not going to waste our time doing all that, but I'm doing good. I'm just excited to talk hoops.
Yeah. But I guess before we get into that, we'll start with Aaron Rodgers. Look, last season, Steelers maybe surprisingly win the AFC North. That we know how they looked against the Houston Texans. It was not a pretty game. Then there was obviously the questions about his future, which every offseason turns into that with Aaron Rodgers. That's just how it is at this point. There was the timeline about mid-March we would know. Then it was a draft. Now it seems like, according to reports, Aaron Rodgers is likely to play for the Steelers in 2026. Question is, I guess, what does that do for the Steelers next year? Like, they have Mike McCarthy, new coach, who's familiar with Aaron Rodgers, obviously. They, I guess, like I said, coming off of the division win, but looking at that division, could we expect the Ravens to be as bad as they were last year? The Bengals seem like they've actually put a focus into the defensive side of the ball. And Cleveland, they have a new coach, so who knows what the energy is there. Should Steelers fans be excited that Aaron Rodgers is coming back to be the quarterback?
What does this do for the Steelers next year? I'm going to preface this in a way that one of my favorite wrestlers, The Rock, would say it. You know what it does for him? It does a whole lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing. Hang on, I'm getting a phone call. Ring, ring. Oh, it's nothing. He says he knows the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, it does absolutely nothing for Pittsburgh. Because guess what? If Rodgers plays to his absolute best at age, 42,
mm-hmm.
What is that, a second round exit? Like, they could win
depending on the
wild card
matchup,
weekend.
yeah.
Like, very matchup dependent. But they're also kind of stuck in no man's land because behind him, all they have is Will Howard, who they clearly have no faith in. They're in a situation to have another lost year next year and they're honestly their only hope feels like is just trying to get a high draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is absolutely nothing for them. Like Rodgers balls out, great. Have fun with another pick at 15. So Rodgers coming back really doesn't do anything. In fact, you could argue that it hurts them because this is a team that at the end of the day just really needs a long-term franchise quarterback. Love Aaron, always a love Aaron. He'll always be my franchise, quarterback GOAT for the Green Bay Packers, but for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this doesn't do anything except kind of put them in a situation where they're treading water.
Yeah. What's going on? I feel like the Steelers have done this before. This is kind of what they ran into with Big Ben at the end of his run in Pittsburgh, where we all could see the flaws in Big Ben's game, but it's like they told themselves, we're sticking with Big Ben until he retires, not until we're ready to move off of him. And look, the years after Big Ben were kind of rough. And I think they're doing this once again. Because unless you're going to tell me like Will Howard makes a jump this offseason, or Drew Aller, who they drafted, is probably better than we think based off of his play at Penn State, if Rodgers picks up and retires at the end of next season, what do? Like, do they use a first-round pick in what is seen as a better quarterback draft on their future quarterback? But then it's like you would have used picks on quarterbacks 3 straight years. And we would probably have questions about whether or not any of the 3 would be good enough for, I guess, competing in that division. Are they going to make some offseason splash for some name? Probably not, because that doesn't seem like Pittsburgh's way of operating. So, yeah, I feel like they're headed down. What's up, Jory? I feel like they're headed down this path where maybe they are overrating last season winning the division, which they won it almost by default. Are they overrating the fact that Mike McCarthy and Rodgers have had some success before and feel like they could strike that up again? Maybe. But I agree with you. I don't see why they kind of base their offseason around making the team better for Aaron Rodgers and not looking at it as, we don't know if Rodgers is coming back. Let's operate like he isn't and look to the future. If it works out for them, great. But we'll probably be talking about them next year as another year not winning a Super Bowl and still having those questions at quarterback, as well as some other roster.
Oh, the script writers aren't slick, by the way. It just hit me. Steelers are absolutely getting a high pick next year. I see through the script writers. Where better to pick your franchise quarterback than in a loaded draft class in Pittsburgh next year in the draft? Oh, they ain't slick. Yeah, never mind. I feel like something's gonna happen, and the storyteller and me think something's gonna happen, and they're somehow gonna end up with like the first overall pick.
I mean, it could happen. Obviously, I'm not a Steelers fan, so hey, they can do what they want. But I don't know why these teams are so fascinated with Aaron Rodgers. Yes, he's a great talent. A lot of people argue maybe the most talented quarterback they've seen. We're now going on a decade and a half since he's made a conference title game, and since he's made a Super Bowl, and since he's won a Super Bowl. I don't understand why these teams are acting like he can reclaim that kind of success as he's getting older and seemingly seems less committed to kind of the grind of an NFL season. Because if he says he's going to come back to the Steelers, is he going to play in the preseason? No. Is he going to do some of the workouts in the offseason? Probably not. And we're going to go into next year, and if the offense is a little off, it's going to be, well, Rodgers wasn't there in the offseason. You have to give him some time. Why? Why are we doing this? he should technically be one of the team leaders. Like he should be one of the first ones, getting guys together in the offseason to create the chemistry and all that. But he's not going to do any of that stuff now. He's over it. He's been over that. And he's just not good enough to me to skip all that process and act like, oh, he's going to hit the ground running in week one. It's not who he is.
So he's probably gonna. I think at this point in his career, Rodgers is still like a quality quarterback, so I get why people would, want him.
Yeah.
But he's at the end of the day, like the idea that you can just add Aaron Rodgers and hey, we're going to the, we're going to make a deep playoff run. Those days are, long over.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers equal to Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant. Well, yeah, okay, yes, the toxic part, yes. At least Rodgers, I guess, doesn't do the burner account thing. Or maybe he does. He just hasn't been found out yet. Because once he's on that ayahuasca, we don't know what he's doing.
He's going to cabins in the middle of, like, Brazil.
Yeah.
I'll say I need Rodgers to retire already. I got to start preparing. I got to start saving money because I got to be there when he gets that jersey retired at Lambeau. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And look, it'd obviously be well deserved. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like he wasn't a great quarterback. I just think the ending of his career isn't necessarily helping him out a lot, but hey, he did watch Brett Favre, so he learned from the best and how to dominate the offseason. But we'll move on. Obviously, once Rodgers makes it official, maybe we revisit this. But let's talk some NBA. Playoffs are going on. We're into the second round, have some interesting matchups going on. But before that, I don't know if you saw this, but Charles Lee got an extension from the Charlotte Hornets. I think you and I would both agree, well-deserved. It was a great season in Charlotte. I think if you're a Hornets fan or one of those players on the team, you're hoping this season is now like the start of something and wasn't just some hot second half and then you go back to some of the bad habits of last year. So, question for you. What should we take away from the Hornets this season that you think has staying power going into next year?
I was going to say, I think what has staying power? I definitely think they found keepers. I think definitely you keep around Brandon Miller, Todd Knuppel. I'd say you definitely keep LaMelo. I think he showed improvements. He's still got to work on his shot selection like pretty badly. Mm-hmm. But he was sacrificing some volume for the betterment of the team in the second half of the year. I think that was a big piece of that. So it almost feels like that they found their core three guys that you can start to, build something around. Now, granted, I don't think any of them are untouchable if the right piece becomes available. But, I think that there's plenty of good that you can take away from, especially when when you're looking at the top half of the rotation. At the end of the day, they found three guys that they can build around at a minimum. They got their, multiple star-level players. Said I think LaMelo's a star. I think Todd Knuppel could very well become a star. I think Brandon Miller has star potential.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, this is a very bright team. I didn't look at how long the contract extension was for, but I almost feel like that. I'm thinking if I had to guess, what is it for like 3 years? Because that would make sense to me. You don't want to go overboard right off the bat because you don't know if that second half was kind of just a hot streak. But he definitely deserved this extension. So I love this for Charles Lee.
Yeah, I was trying to verify how many years it was. All they're saying is a contract extension. They're not saying how many years. I think a lot of these teams like to be very secretive with their coaches' contracts. I don't understand why. But okay, so looking at that core three, and I guess the landscape of the East, what is their ceiling? Like, obviously, if Ball does work on the shot selection, he could be a very good point guard. We've seen Knipple in his rookie season. Like, he's a legit sniper who will probably be better next year because he's gone through kind of the rigors of a full NBA season coming off of college, longer schedule. He'll know how to kind of pace himself a little better. And Brandon Miller, who we knew how talented he was when they drafted him, but it's taken a couple of years for him to kind of realize his potential. So is that a three that if they obviously put the right pieces around them, could they be a top 4 seed in the East
I
at
think they
their
could
best?
I think you could definitely make an argument that with that core, they could become a top 4 seed in the East. I still, like I said, I still think if they want to become championship contenders, they still need that guy, like that, superstar level guy to really bring it all together. Preferably a
Mm-hmm.
4. I genuinely don't think that Miles Bridges is ever the answer.
Yeah.
But I think they have some pretty solid fives, and Diabate and Kalkbrenner. So I do think that this could be like a top 4 seed, but in order for me to start thinking of them as like a championship level team, like I said, I think they're obviously keep working on that depth, but if you can find a way to add a superstar, while these guys are on the rookie contracts and build
Mm-hmm.
around that, ooh, that would be fun.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll transition to one of those teams in the top of the East that Charlotte's hoping to become one day. Celtics season ends, and the rumor mills go crazy with Jaylen Brown. We've been here before. Uh, we've had these conversations before. Now, this I guess was spearheaded by his Twitch stream after the elimination. I mean, if you watch ESPN, you've heard about it for the past 2 or 3 days now. But getting past all that, because look, it was his platform. I've seen some of his streams; like they are very interesting. Like Jaylen Brown will break down film and all this kind of stuff. I saw the one with like Jordan Walsh. It was funny because he's taking Jordan Walsh under his wing. Great. But looking at the offseason, what do you think is the real possibility that when they tip off next year, Jaylen Brown is in a different uniform?
0.
I agree.
I think there's one name on the market that you possibly trade Jaylen Brown for, no doubt. That's Giannis if he becomes available. If you can find a way to swing Giannis and you have to give up Jaylen Brown to pair Giannis and Tatum, yeah, do that, 100%. But I don't think that you're finding a much better fit that's available. I can start naming off guys that'd be a great fit with Tatum. The problem is none of them are going to be available. And the guys that are possibly going to be available, what are we looking at? Like if I went Kyle, you guys can have Kevin Durant. Probably the best of the guys that are available that you could realistically trade JB for.
And Brad
Would
Stevens
that
turned that
excite you?
down like 4 years ago.
Right? Like when he was at the peak of his powers, he said no. Or I say, hey Kyle, you guys can get LeBron James. Yeah, see, absolutely.
We know LeBron would be miserable in Boston, and Boston fans would be miserable with LeBron.
And like at the end of the day, like when you start going through the list of names of guys to possibly replace Jaylen that are realistic, you realize that it just makes the Celtics a much worse basketball team. Unless Giannis is walking through that door, or some other, actual like superstar or or really high star level player becomes available, that'd be a seamless fit with Tatum. Wouldn't even pick up the phone. Wouldn't even bother with it.
Yeah. And from what we've seen with Brad Stevens seems like he's way too smart to kind of fall for the not even like pressure, I guess, because I'm sure Brad Stevens doesn't sit there with a notebook and go, "Hey, let me see how Perk or Stephen A can improve my team." Like, I doubt he's doing that. But let's just say, I guess, if Giannis is truly available, and I don't know what the asking price would be. 'Cause I feel like if it's just Jaylen Brown, I think even you as a Bucks fan would be like, probably need a little bit more than that.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. So it probably had to turn to like a 3-team deal or something, and we know those are very much complicated. So I guess looking at this aspect of it, I did say we're going to disregard the Twitch stuff, but let's dive into one point he had, because he talked about Embiid being a great big man, possibly one of the best ever. And he did associate that with him flopping. Is it safe to say, and maybe you didn't like that Jaylen Brown was saying it, but if he's talking about the greatness of Embiid and the fact that he gets away with some stuff with flopping, is that not a reason for the league to be somewhat concerned that players feel that way and fans probably feel that way, that these super talented guys are also getting the advantage of these calls? Is that not, like I said, you may not like that Jaylen Brown said it, you may not like that it happened hours after they eliminated, but is that not some messaging the league should look into?
It's just ironic coming from Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
He's right, but it's ironic coming from him because, especially playing my Bucks, I've seen him throw himself to the ground at the lightest touch from, some guys, obviously mainly Giannis, but like I've seen Jaylen Brown flop like a mother effort too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why it's ironic. Is he right? Yeah, he's right. You want it, and we can stop flopping whatever. Refs just have to stop rewarding it. Refs just have to call the game a little differently. But like I said, I think it's just ironic because we've seen Jaylen Brown flop, his fair share. But at the end of the day, he's right. Like I want to see players win with skill and play designs, not hey, they're the free throw line 15 times. Obviously, free throw drawing itself is a skill, but I think at the end of the day, the refs just kind of lean a little too hard into awarding them.
Right. Because, like, we're not going to sit here and, act like some of these guys aren't getting hacked. We understand that. That's the stuff, like, you call that, nobody's going to have a problem with. But if it is an Embiid and, he's 7 foot, 300 pounds or something like that. If he goes into the lane against a smaller guy and flops his way to the line, that's where I feel like players and fans would be like, do you really need to bail him out in that situation? Because I've seen, I think like Gene played one of them last night on Wire to Wire, where I'm assuming it was probably like a Knicks fan or a Sixers fan, because we know the hate that those three cities have for each other. And they were talking about how Brown was talking about flopping, and they showed like the one play where like Brown put two hands into the back of Joel Embiid and was like, see, how's that considered flopping? I don't know. Pretty sure Jaylen Brown wasn't talking about that play. There was a play I remember. Embiid caught it like around the free throw line. He might have had like Derek White guarding him, and he took like this fadeaway jumper to try to draw a call, and I was like, he didn't get the call, which I was glad he didn't. But it's stuff like that you don't need to see. There was a foul like on Keita. He was backing Keita down and then realized he had nothing else to do and basically just jumped into Keita and like threw the ball straight up in the air and got a call. It's stuff like that. And I'm not even hating on Joel Embiid or SGA or any of these guys that take advantage of it. If it's something you can get away with, why not? You're getting easy points out of it. You're, changing the momentum of games. Kudos to them. It shows kind of the intelligence of some of these offensive players. Because I know we talked about before we came on here, in Discord, talking about defense and how it's not being played in today's era. There are guys that play really good defense. You also have to give credit that a lot of these offensive players are very crafty as well. Look at Joker. Joker couldn't jump over a piece of paper you put on the ground, yet he finds a way to be so effective in today's game, which is crazy athletic You have these guys that are just blazing speed up and down the court. Yet Jokic is seen as the best player in the league, and he does it strictly off being crafty. So I think the league. Look, I would not hate if the NBA was like, look, I mean, obviously not to the extreme of like no blood, no foul, because then guys like Draymond might get 10 more years in the league. But if they allowed kind of the physicality that they do at times in the playoffs to be kind of the norm, I actually think fans would be down for that and take away the rip through fouls and the guy going like 100 miles an hour towards the defender to throw themselves into the defender like sideways and fall to the court and getting a foul call. You take that stuff away, the game looks so much better on TV.
No, absolutely. Say 100%. Sam, I'll see if they actually address it. I know the one year, I can't remember which year it was, but they had they said, "Oh, we're going to allow more physicality," and then they allowed it for like a month, and then
Yeah.
they went right back to what they were doing. Oh, that's not good. I'm sorry for your live update. Tobias Harris is down in a lot of pain, holding his like groin, like thigh area.
He's been having actually a pretty good playoff run. For a guy who catches a lot of heat, like for his contract with the Clippers and stuff like that, he's become an important piece for Detroit.
I think he's just misunderstood. Like Tobias is a good player. The problem is teams pay him, and that's not his fault. But they
He's the
pay him
Kirk
this
Cousins of the NBA.
right, like they pay him star level money when in all reality, like if you need a if you need 15 points from Tobias, he can get you to 15. If you need 25 points from Tobias, he can get you 15. Like he's just normally just pretty consistent. Unfortunately, I think his rep though forever took a PR because he did have that rough series in Philly where he scored what was it like one point in the closeout game.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, Tobias has just always been a really solid player. His agent is just an MVP like Hall of Fame level agent, and just always gets him stupid amounts of money.
Hey, can't hate on him for that. But
Oh,
yeah, I agree. Like people just looked at that Clippers deal and they were like, "Oh, so you're telling me he's like a top 15 type of player?" And it's like, no, Tobias Harris has shown you who he is. Like you can maybe get away if he's your second option. You'd feel really good if he was your third option. And he's a guy who will take advantage of mismatches. He'll post up smaller guys. He can hit the corner three. He's pretty efficient in the mid range. So yeah, on a team in Detroit, him kind of standing out as Cade's reliable running mate is a good thing for them. Now, if he is, hurt to some extent and misses some games, like you'll actually see him being missed out on the court because he has become that guy that Cade can rely on to be consistent 15 to 20 point kind of guy. Some nights he'll pop off and get you 25 or 30. Don't think that's who he is. He could just do it every once in a while if he's having a really good night.
I think I think one of the bigger issues at times too is I also still think that Philly kind of misused him. They had a lot of just him sitting in the corner when he's at his best, playing some bully ball post up. Like he's a reliable scorer who reliable secondary scorer that can shoot, not necessarily a pure volume shooter. So seeing him go to Detroit and able to just get back to more of his, game and comfort level has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's a vibe shooter. Like if he's feeling it, yeah, let him shoot those corner threes because he'll knock them down. He'll have a bounce to his step and everything. What's up, John? John has done this before. That was actually a question I was going to lead into at some point. He comes in firing off right away. Let's go ahead and answer it. So John's asking who needs a title more, and his answer, Donovan and the Cavs. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Aren't they just number one? Not only do you have Donovan Mitchell, you have James Harden, who really could use a title to,
Mhm.
almost solidify his legacy. If he wins one this year, like he is still, a super productive member of the team. It's not like, Robert Parrish winning the 1997 NBA Finals on the Bulls bench. Like James Harden was, is still, been very good for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I think we're like on one of his like last years. This might be the last year where a title really does impact his legacy. And I could be wrong, obviously James could be very productive for,
Mhm.
2, 3 years after this. Still, I wouldn't be shocked, but at the end of the day, like I feel like he's running out of time to really win a title that you could be like, yeah, look at that. James Harden won title and it really, means something.
Yeah, look, if you're James Harden and you win a title this year, you go off into Springfield in the Hall of Fame. You would sit there and say, "Look, Donovan Mitchell had Darius Garland and that group, and they couldn't get it done. They had to move Garland to bring me in. My first half season there, I helped Donovan Mitchell win his first title. Yeah, that would be a crazy thing for James Harden, and would you'd have to respect his career a lot more. My, I guess, answer if I wanted to be different, couldn't we say that the Knicks with Brunson and Cat probably could use a title this year? And maybe not necessarily because of like they're both old or anything like that, but I think that city has been kind of been ready to move off of Cat anyway. If they fall short this year, I think the outside noise to do something different, like we could see the Knicks be somewhat reshaped in the offseason if they fall short. Because I think Knicks fans feel like right now, Boston's not there. They're up on Philly. I think the Knicks fans have told themselves, and I think the organization feels like this is their year to get to the finals. I think if they fall short, maybe they overreact and make a move that we might look back and say, yeah, that's where you kind of messed up, whatever this window would be. Pulling
And
for the
the
Knicks to
Knicks
make a deep run. But I do want to. I don't want them to because Stephen A. and Spike Lee is going to be on the TV for 7. Yeah, yeah.
I think they could obviously win the second round. I don't think a finals run is in their future. I think whoever wins this Cavs Piston series beats the Knicks. I think I'm just very tentative on the Knicks. Like obviously they were looking amazing like the last like 3 games. However, hamstring injuries are no joke. And
Mm-hmm.
OG Anunoby suffering a hamstring. Like I genuinely am concerned for them. Like how is OG gonna look when he comes back?
Yeah.
Because we all know how tricky those hamstrings injuries
Mm-hmm.
are. Like if it almost looked like even in the playoffs, Aaron Gordon was still trying to recover from his, and his happened, in last year's playoffs. So it's one of those things where I feel like what's going to happen is the Knicks win the series, but they still have to rush OG back, and OG's just not the same player, and I think that just would be too devastating for the Knicks to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do kind of agree with you that the Pistons Cavs winner would probably love to see. Well, not necessarily love, but wouldn't hate to see the Knicks in the next round because I think what Philly does have going for them is obviously Embiid, if he's upright, if he's healthy, might be the biggest matchup issue of the teams remaining in the East. And with the attention you'd have to put on him, that makes it easier for Maxi, who he's just a blur with the ball and is just so talented that the Knicks do knock them out. Yeah, you're probably looking at that as a sigh of relief because the Knicks, you know what you have to deal with. Brunson dominating the ball, and Cat is going to pick and pop and shoot threes. And if you can kind of rein that in a little bit, you feel better about your chances to beat the Knicks. It'll just be Knicks fans will obviously travel. They're a big brand. I get it. And yeah, so I guess to go back to it, that would be my answer to John's question. Brunson and the Knicks, but Donovan and the Cavs absolutely have pressure on them as well. And Jared Allen kind of needs to wake up in that series as well.
I mean, the Cavs have come out with the most brain dead strategy to guard the Detroit Pistons. This is truly incredible. They're at the line. They're like pressing them. I get doing that for Duncan, but like, why are you all the way at the 3-point line guarding a sewer? Like, why are you at the 3-point line really guarding any of these guys?
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, none of these guys are consistent enough shooters to go, got to run them off the line. Like, no, keep them out there. If, Tobias Harris, like I said, he's not a volume 3-point shooter. If he's going to beat you with, 7 threes, tip your cap to him. If a Stewart starts knocking down threes, that's just not your day at that point. But, like, please just stop running this team off the line. Keep them out there.
And that's where I think some teams overcomplicate the game of basketball because, yes, everybody says, everybody shoots too many threes. That's fine. But you also, like you said, you have to understand who you're playing against. Like if Jalen Duren was standing out at the 3-point line and took 4 or 5 threes a game, you have no reason to overreact to that thinking he's Porzingis or somebody. Like, you let him. Ausar Thompson, yeah. I don't care if Ausar Thompson banks in 6 threes. I would still dare him to keep shooting from out there because he's almost limiting himself if he's just hanging out on the perimeter. And we talked about earlier, Tobias Harris is a rhythm shooter. Like if he has it going that night and he's knocking down threes, you kind of live to fight another day and you take the next game and see if he can duplicate that. So I don't understand it either. And, it's an interesting series. Like, where do you see that series going based off of what you've seen so far?
At the rate this is going, the Cavs are just going to get flat out 4-0 swept.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand, I guess, what they're trying to accomplish half the time. But I think the biggest problem right now with the Cavs is turnovers. This is not a good offensive team in Detroit. Like, they're arguably one of the weakest offensive, number one seeds we've seen in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing you can't do is sit there turning the ball over. That's why they lost game 1. And game 2, they're still making a lot of lackadaisical, stupid passes. Like, if the Cavs take care of the ball, they can win this series. But if, basing off what I'm watching and what I watched in game 1, if they keep playing like they are now, Pistons are just going to run them right out of the gym because it. So I'm not a fan. I guess I'm not a fan of the strategy of the Cavs so far.
Yeah, because a lot of people remember like the I guess the way that people talk about the playoffs was, the game slows down in the playoffs. Detroit can't afford for the game to slow down. So yeah, if you turn it over against them, they're going to get out and run because they're a very athletic team. But in the half court, they're kind of a mess. So I don't understand why Cleveland is doing that as well. But what's going on 3-D? Knicks need the title the most between the Knicks and the 70s NBA and the Nets ABA title. New York hasn't seen hoops title in over. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with New York. Like a lot of their pressure to win a title is more so the city has kind of been ready and waiting to celebrate something, which is why we see anytime the Knicks have a somewhat decent season, Knicks fans go crazy over the possibilities. Saijan, I was about to say turnovers for the Cavs. Mm-hmm.
Also, it feels like that the Knicks are like teetering on this weird line of like win a title and having to retool the roster.
Mm-hmm.
So like if they fall short, like then that might be a team to have as to retool. All this talk about Boston, but if New York falls short, oof. Like I just don't see this being a team that you just go, all right, you know what? We'll just run it back. Like like I said, it feels like the Knicks have a lot on the line because, like I said, if this iteration of the Knicks like bows out and loses. Even in the Eastern Conference Finals, that could be a team that we see some retooling and changes on.
Yeah. And look, I think even for that question, you could go a few teams. Like, yes, we talked about the Knicks, we talked about the Cavs. There's pressure on Philly. This is, year whatever with Embiid as the process. They've tried different players around him, and they haven't been able to get past the second round. So this is now another season where they knock off maybe their biggest roadblock in Boston in the first round, and all they do is turn around and lose to not only in the second round, but to the Knicks, which is another team that, I just mentioned before. When you look at Philly, New York, and Boston, the hatred between those three cities, it's kind of hard to put into words. So if it's another second round exit for Embiid, I think Philly would have some questions. Now we can understand that they'd probably look at Paul George or somebody like that. But you run it back with Embiid, another year older. He's once again dealing with injuries. Why would next year be better when there's the real possibility they could be worse next year if they just ran it back?
So the thing with Embiid is I don't even know if we can say there's pressure on Philly, because I feel like in order for there to be pressure, there has to be expectations. I don't think there's really expectations for Philly to do much of anything. Even if they win this, it'll just be like, hey, cool, they're that team that made the miraculous Eastern Conference Finals runs before bowing out. Like I said, I get what you're saying with the Sixers. I just slightly disagree, because I feel like that we just kind of all knew before the season this team wasn't good enough to win a title. So the fact that, like, if they come out and don't win a title, I just like, oh, well, on to the next year, I guess, which you're kind of locked into running it back.
Right. My whole thing was just only because I guess the way the team looked when Embiid came back against Boston, I think there were maybe some ideas that they could, like, you're just only needing Embiid to be good for like a month and, get yourself into the playoffs. I mean, the finals, I should say. So if they just turn around and lose to New York, I think for some Sixers fans, it might be somewhat of a letdown, because you wanted to believe the Boston series win could propel them a little bit further, at least. That's been the Embiid knock. Can't get past the second round. Almost like the Tracy McGrady can't get out of the first round knock against them.
Hey, you know what? He beat Boston, so
yeah,
he can hang that on his cap. He finally beat Boston, and it apparently costed everything, because I don't even know if we see him again this playoffs at this point.
Yeah. Let's see. So John has an off-topic question. All right, we'll answer John's question and then kind of look at the Western Conference. Katie, which team do you see needing him the most or best fit? Miami, Boston, Timberwolves. Katie to the Sixers. Don't do that to the Sixers fans. Sixers fans dealt with Ben Simmons. They dealt with, I guess, Tobias Harris. They dealt with James Harden. If you throw KD at them, yeah.
Can we find a way?
Best.
No, can we?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, can we find a way to get KD to the Sixers without trading PG, Maxey, or Embiid? Because I really just want to see the most hilarious, like, oldest group of, oldest team ever just running next year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, say, Philly would be interesting because they actually, it makes sense at power forward. I think KD would slide in there real nicely, but then obviously you'd be losing PG. So, like, there's trade-offs. It might require, I don't even know. Would it require more than maybe a first, maybe a couple seconds at this point? Like, I guess it depends what the asking price is, but I'd say he does, like, kind of slide in seamlessly next to Philly. So That actually would be interesting. I think the Wolves are probably the team to watch, especially if they flame out again. I could see them flipping, potentially upgrading from Julius Randle to KD. Boston, no, we went over that. They said no already. Like when he was 4 years younger, I doubt all of a sudden he goes, KD's 37 instead of 33. Yeah, we'll take him now. And then Miami, if he wants to go hang out in Florida, yeah, sure, why not? Like it wouldn't that genuinely be the most nothing burger of all time.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anybody's going KD and Bam today. Just wrap it up. Game's over. Try again tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, I think Minnesota would be an interesting one. Like having Ant and KD on the court together, I could see it working. I also wonder, would KD rub off on Ant a little bit? And I don't know. But out of the teams that you mentioned, John, I think Minnesota would be the best fit. I think I had this weird thinking, like, what if through some moves or whatever, you take the Nuggets roster and you remove Aaron Gordon and you get KD in there? How would that look?
It would not be good. It would be good offense. I think the
Right.
problem with that though is Aaron Gordon does a lot of things defensively that really protect Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just he's a good shot blocker. He's a good rebounder. He can guard. Obviously, he's good at guarding bigger players. But it's really the shot blocking and that athleticism from the 4 spot that really make me question if this would actually, be a good fit. Because I think Jokic needs it. He needs a certain kind of player next to him at the 4, and
Mm-hmm.
preferably an athletic shot blocker. That can kind of help him out on the defensive end. And while Jokic KD hoops would be absolutely a blast
Yeah.
offensively, and I think they'd make it work defensively. I just don't think that it would be the move to put them back into the promised land.
Yeah. I look, I think the problem with KD is just going to be one, he's been to a lot of teams already, and knowing at least, I guess, the rumored, obviously, burner and how that affected a Houston team, it's like you can't send him everywhere. For as great of a talent as people view Kevin Durant, he just cannot fit on certain teams. Like if you were Charlotte and we heard, oh, KD is going to Charlotte, we'd be like, oh, great, you just ruined everything you built up from this year to bring in a guy who's probably just going to blow up that locker room. So I think the offseason is going to be fascinating, even though Houston has come out and said that KD and Ime are part of their future. So I guess we're not going to expect KD to get moved anywhere. But if KD is part of your future, does that not mean you have to move other pieces from that team then? Because the burner account did this to this team this year. If he's back there next year, some of those guys can't be there next year.
I mean, hey, that could put some intriguing names on the trade block.
Yeah.
I just think that Houston Rockets are just have a limited ceiling. To be fair,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of that I think has to do that I'm just not as high on. They're young players like a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Granted, I think Amen could end up developing into like an all-star caliber player. I'm just not really high on Sengun. I think with him there, I think he's very Sabonis light, that he needs the ball in his hands, but he can't really he can't really shoot.
Right.
He kind of has to dribble the air out of the ball to really process the floor at times. Like it's just weird. I don't think he can be your center on a championship team just because of the way you have to employ him. I think he's a very good player. I think he's going to make
Mm-hmm.
a lot of money in the league. I just question Sengun's fit as the center of a championship level team. They might have to go more defensive minded if they don't plan on just fully committing to putting the ball in his hands every possession.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's why I thought it was kind of funny that some people labeled Sengun as like baby Joker or something. Where I agree with you. I think he's more Sabonis than Joker. But hey, Houston, they're trying to figure it out. You know, the young players, I agree. Also, like Jabari Smith, your Tari Easons, your Amin Thompsons, and guys like that. I think if they were in their right role, yeah, Houston would be better off. But Houston's trying to make, I guess, those guys their core, and I think that's where they would fall short. It's just that hopefully they learn. Well, obviously not if they're going to keep KD around, but I would have liked if they went into this offseason, moved off of KD, and tried it with a different vet. I don't understand why they're committed to KD. Are they afraid of, like, I guess, moving off of the name Kevin Durant and how that would make them look? I don't know. I don't understand why they think next year with KD would look any better. The West around Houston isn't going anywhere next year. KD doesn't make Houston better than Oklahoma City right off the bat. I'd argue I would probably take Minnesota over them. Depending how Denver does in their offseason, I'd take Denver over them. I mean, look at the Lakers. The Lakers are better than them now, and yes, we'll see what the LeBron factor or whatever, but I would probably take the Lakers over them. So if at best with KD you're like fifth or sixth in the conference, well, what's the point of signing up for that again?
Like I said, the KD dilemma, like when he plays, he's still an all NBA caliber player. He's still like very good.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like he's past the point where you can just say he's never been the kind of guy you can just put on your team and go, "Yep, see you in the finals."
Yeah.
So, like, he just got to find somewhere with a better like support system and just a more championship ready team. That's
But it's
willing
like
to take him on.
where is that? He had that in Oklahoma City early in his career. He couldn't appreciate it. Then he goes to maybe the place for him in Golden State, but I guess him and Draymond, they couldn't make that work. Then he wants us to, I guess, believe he was that guy in Brooklyn when he gets Kyrie and Harden to go there with him. That blew up around him, and he couldn't make that work. He handpicks Phoenix because they have Devin Booker. That didn't work. And now he's in Houston, where people thought that Houston roster was ready to compete, even though you and I probably didn't agree with that. But the perception was Houston was an up-and-coming team. And now you throw KD on there, that's going to take him over the top. They regressed with him. So it's like, I don't know what you're supposed to do with him.
Hey, you know what?
Yes. I mean, yeah.
I can't even say Let's say I know pre like Van Fleet. I think it was pre Van Fleet injury. I think just for fun, I think my long shot finals was predicting Magic Rockets NBA finals just for fun.
Which I understood that because, like I said, the perception with Houston was they're great defensively. They just need a guy to get you a bucket. If you look up KD, he's a bucket. So I think the assumption was that he would be the right guy to get it done, but we also understand how he can kind of work behind the scenes, and he's not a leader, which, I think that's something Houston probably needed the same way. Remember, a couple of years ago, Memphis was that young team that was ascending in the Western Conference. And what did we learn? They didn't really have any leadership on that team, and now they've regressed back to where they are at this point. I feel like if you're Houston, you have to look at Memphis as a cautionary tale. You don't want to end up like them in a couple of years. But Kerm, what's going on? We talked about the Jaylen Brown stuff earlier. My opinion on the Celtics, very simple. The Tatum and Brown talk nonsense. If I'm going to improve the team, I feel like you use Hauser, and I'd hate to say it, but Derek White to do so. I think Vucevic is probably gone. He can go wherever in the offseason. You get a big so that Keita becomes your backup center. I think Keita as a number 2, great. Certain nights he can start, but I think he should be your backup. And Luka Garza should be your depth big.
Say you out on
Jordan Walsh, Shireman, guys like that are why I would be ready to move off of a Hauser. And you move off Derek White, I guess that makes Peyton Pritchard your probably starting point guard at that point. That's what I would do. I don't think Brad Stevens is in the mindset to overreact, and I think moving Brown or Tatum would be an overreaction.
You know what? Just big brain it. Trade them both. Get all those assets.
Now, Brad Stevens did that. I mean, I would probably be shocked by it, but that would make more sense to me than, hey, let's move Jaylen Brown for Bam Adebayo. I don't want to see that. Chucking up threes. I've had this conversation before. The chucking up threes narrative, I'm at the point where you miss me with that because they literally won a title shooting threes when people said they were shooting too many then. Why would you think that they won a title playing that way that they were going to change how they play now? That to them was their success. Now, could they scale it back a little bit? Sure. Brad Stevens even said that. But I saw people like getting on Jaylen Brown because it was a game 7. I think it was 92-90. The Sixers had the lead. He drove into the paint and kicked it out to Peyton Pritchard, who was wide open in the corner for a 3. And people were like, oh my God, shooting too many threes. Peyton Pritchard was wide open. That is a good 3. So now if he had kicked it out to like Keita and Keita shot it, yeah, rip him all day. But that's a good shot in that situation. Pritchard just missed it. Mark Jackson used to say, make or miss league. That's all it is.
I think of that specific play you're talking about, though, wasn't necessarily the fact that Pritchard shot a 3. It was the fact that Keita was wide open in the paint.
Now, that's a different conversation. Yes, that's where, like you said, where the Celtics need Tatum. Tatum is more inclined to make that pass because Tatum would have his head up. Jaylen, on the other hand, his head was down. I don't think he ever saw Keita. And by the time he got into the lane and looked up, he couldn't pass it to Keita anymore because Keita's like 2 inches away. So he pivoted and saw Pritchard. So that part of it I get. Yes, I saw the play and I was like, Keita's wide open, but Jaylen Brown never saw him, at least until it was too late. But the shooting the threes thing, it's a pace and space league for a reason. That's just where we are. With the European influence, that's where we are. And we just have to live with it. And if it's done correctly, like it's still good basketball to watch. Like if the ball's moving and you find an open guy from 3, I am not going to, rip any team that's operating that way. Now, if you're taking just, 20 fadeaway threes falling out of bounds, then yeah, we can have that conversation. That's usually not what's happening.
Or you can just do what the Miami Heat did in the first round of the 2023 playoffs and just shoot like 57% on contested threes.
Yeah.
The most irritating playoff series in my life.
Yeah. Right. And, if that does happen, yes, as a fan, you would be disappointed, but you'd also kind of go with the Heat couldn't do that again if you paid them like $2 million to do it. That was just one of those weird. That's one of those situations like if you're a Bucks fan, you're like, clearly, we were never meant to win this series. Because I remember that series as well. Like you would have thought Jimmy Butler was I don't know, like 99 on 2K in GOAT mode, and you're just like, yeah, what are you supposed to do? So, yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say is we also have to look at this as the 3-point shooting is why we get a lot of these big comebacks that we get. Remember the 90s? If you're in the fourth quarter and you had like a 10-point lead, that was like game over. Today's NBA, you could have a 10-point lead with like 3 minutes left in the game and still lose. So we kind of have to accept it and get away from that narrative that they're chucking up too many threes. Because trust me, it's not going to get any better. At least not near future. It will revert at some point, probably.
No, I absolutely say. Sorry, it's 51% on tightly contested threes.
Hey, look, either way, that Heat team was never supposed to shoot that well anyway. So, yeah, I wouldn't care if they shot 45% of contested threes. That's not what that Heat team was.
By the way, for fun perspective, they shot 42% on wide open and 43% on open and 51% on tight threes. And we genuinely forced a lot of tight threes. Mm-hmm. They were just freaking hitting them. Yeah. It's funny. Sorry, that series is a pet peeve of mine because a lot of people like go after like, oh well, you know, Giannis has to be better, etc. I'm like, or just you ran into some insane shot variants that you genuinely couldn't do anything about because even the adjustments weren't working.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's quickly look at the West before we get out of here. We have the Thunder and the Lakers, which I think most Laker fans aren't necessarily hoping for too much in that series. But do you think the Lakers could at least make it interesting? Could they push the Thunder to 6 games?
I don't think so.
Okay. I mean, look, the Thunder are tough, and I know Sixers fans kick themselves about it, but Jared McCain is such a good fit for them. That's one move I still don't necessarily understand why Philly felt like they had to make it, but hey, imagine if you had a future, Maxey, Edgecombe, McCain. You'd probably feel good about it, but hey, they did what they did.
It's all right. They got PG.
I mean, look, PG had a pulse against Boston. I will give him that, but yeah, probably not expecting too much out of him next couple of years. I mean, I agree. I feel like Thunder Lakers probably doesn't go that long, but I don't know. I feel like you can still give credit to JJ and the coaching job that he's made there. Which, I mean, we talked about that before. Like, we think JJ has done a great job with what he's been handed in LA this season. So let's go to the other series. Minnesota and San Antonio. It's a 1-1 series now. San Antonio bounces back in game 2 and absolutely blows out Minnesota. Where do you see that series standing at this point as we wait for game 3 to happen out in Minnesota?
I think the Spurs win in 6.
Okay.
I think in order to beat, the Spurs in a series, you're gonna need some like consistent spacing. And I don't think the Wolves have enough of it to really bother the Spurs. Like even in their game 1 win, what did Wemby have 12 blocks? And it was an absolute grind. So it's one of those things where I think that the Wolves will make it competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think game 2 will be the new standard for that series.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I just don't think there's enough offensive firepower and not enough spacing to threaten Wemby out of the paint. Because in the minutes that they had Naz Reid at the 5, it worked because you got Wemby, spaced out to the 3-point line. But even then, like I said, say point stands. I'll take the Spurs in 6. I'll give and one more game off of them.
Okay. Yeah. I look, the Wemby variable is definitely an interesting one. I was doing I did like a segment on another podcast, and I was like, Wemby's a guy that obviously, if they win the title, could do a lot for him and his standing. But did you see like I guess the talk about Game 2, where they were talking about how like most of Wemby's blocks are like goaltends or fouls, and I was like, now it's like if you're the fan base of a team that loses the game, that's the kind of stuff you're looking for. Because it was kind of crazy that Wemby had, I guess, 11 blocks in the Game 2 win. And that's where, once again, this era with the 3-point shot, if you can't pull a guy like Wemby away from the rim, you're making it so much harder on yourself. And that's why you said when Naz Reid was out there, that helps a little bit. But unless Naz Reid's going to turn into, Klay Thompson or something from out there, Wemby's still going to hang around the paint because he understands, especially against a Minnesota team where Ant wants to get to the front of the rim. Gobert has to play at the front of the rim. Well, unless Gobert wants to go Dirk Nowitzki mode and, start lighting it up, then sure. I just think, look, I feel like we're headed for Thunder versus Spurs Western Conference Finals. I think the NBA would love to see that matchup, and I would love to see how the Thunder go about attacking Wemby. Not calling either series over yet, but I feel like that's where we're kind of headed right now.
Cool.
Which also did. No, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I'd love that series.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I got sidetracked for a second because I'm watching James Harden throw brick after brick over brick. James Harden gives you 2 games, or can normally win you like 2 games in a series, but
Yeah.
he cannot win you 4.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we're getting bad James Harden right now. He's 1 of 8 from the field currently.
Oh, well,
I'm scared if I step outside, I'm gonna get hit by a loose shot.
That's the book on Harden. He'll give you, like you said, a couple of really good games. The other 3, 4, 5, he's gonna be either non-existent or just horrible. So, okay, I guess this will be the last thing. So we're looking forward to Thunder, Spurs in the West. What's the matchup in the East that you're rooting for? Taking out what the current standings are between the 2 series, but what's the series you would want to see in the conference finals?
Ooh, I'd say. You know what's funny? I don't have a preference.
Okay.
Like, genuinely, each team is just kind of fun in their own way. Like, they're unique. Like, obviously, Pistons versus Knicks would be fun. Cavs versus Knicks would be fun. So, I'd say, honestly, I don't have a preference. I don't have that match where I'm like, I need it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at this point, any variation of teams of Cavs or Pistons versus the Knicks is fine with me.
Okay. I was about to say, is there any version of that would probably be the worst to watch?
I
guess probably not.
Not really. At this point, you kind of know Pistons. You kind of know what Pistons games are.
Mm-hmm.
Cavs Knicks might be just hilarious to watch, but yeah, no, I don't think there's really a version of the playoffs at this point, like a matchup that makes you go, man, this is what we're getting.
Yeah.
Even if the 76ers somehow pulled it out, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, look, I think the NBA should plant their flag in that. At this point, any matchup would probably be entertaining. Which did make me think about another answer to Kurum's question about my opinion on the Celtics, and probably why I think the Tatum Brown thing is so annoying. You're looking at teams in the East that are literally building their rosters to beat Boston. So why would you make it easier on them by splitting them up.
I'd say I think the biggest thing about why you wouldn't want to, especially for example, split them up, especially like I saw the idea, I think it was ESPN floating around. Well, they should potentially keep Tatum or keep Brown and trade Tatum.
Yeah.
I think they miss on just how much those guys feed off of each other. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not a championship level team without both of them. I guess it depends who you're bringing in. Like I said, that's a very short list of people you can bring in over Brown, but also Brown too. Like you can't just trade Tatum and keep Jaylen Brown. That wouldn't go well. Like that peaks at a second round exit and effectively slams your window, your window to
Mm-hmm.
contention. My biggest thing with Jaylen Brown is, and Kyle can tell me if I'm wrong here, but
Mm-hmm.
he's a play finisher. The thing with Jaylen Brown is, yes, he can score. He's one of the better tough shot makers in the league. I'll give him that.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that doesn't create advantages for your teammates. That doesn't move the ball. The only time I really see JB look to move the ball is when he can clearly see over the opponent. So pretty much if you mismatch on a really small guard onto him, he'll look to move the ball. But I think that's kind of why Tatum and Brown work so well. I think Tatum, he's more versatile, well-rounded, but the biggest reason I don't think you can build around JB is while he's a great tough shot maker, I just don't think that's enough. I don't think he brings enough as the number one option to go, yeah, I can build a championship winning team around him and just him without Tatum. Like, I just don't think that version of JB's there where you can slap him on a team without
Mm-hmm.
some kind of creator or without Tatum and go, yep, see you in the finals. So yeah, I think especially the idea of trading Tatum is bizarre, but trading either one of them at this point would just be a panic move. And they're
Yeah.
not a good one at that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I just want to see, I guess, Brad Stevens' answer for the center position. Because I already know he's got some deal probably working. And like I said, I think unfortunately, I think the emergence of Shireman makes Hauser expendable. And I think the fact that Derek White's like 32 and his number, I feel like those are the two spots that Brad probably looks at moving to bring in other pieces. So I feel like the Jays are here to stay. Great. That's where I'm at with them. But I agree with you. Like this season, Jaylen Brown did show that he can get you through a regular season. He can get you a 50-win team. But I think the path to him doing that, it's a smaller margin of error than if Tatum's out there with him. It is probably kind of exhausting for Jaylen Brown to get through 82 games playing that way. Where, like you said, he's taking a lot of contested shots. He's driving into the lane and collapsing on him and all that kind of stuff. It's just more free flowing with Tatum, who's a bigger ball handler and has a better passing ability than Brown. Like Brown got better at it this year. I think if you're Brad Stevens, you're hoping he gets even better at it next year. But yeah, you have to have them together, or if you're going to move one, it would be Brown. I don't want to see that either because I think Brown consistently improving his game is why he had the season he had this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, like JB, like it would just be a bad idea to move him. Still, say he's a reliable. I guess in baseball terms, he's a high level, reliable innings eater. Can get you through the regular season, and he's a good He's good at closing games. So, like I said, it feels like too. The hard part is how the Celtics value him versus the rest of the league. Like it would cost way too much. The Celtics love him.
Mm-hmm.
So I also just highly doubt that. Let's say even if Brown would become available, I feel like the asking price would just be too high.
Right. Yeah, we've seen what kind of traitor Brad Stevens is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so look, I guess if something did happen on that front, we would obviously talk about that again, even though I think it'll be some other move that Brad Stevens looks at. Unless Jaylen Brown like kicks down the door tomorrow and goes, I want out, which he literally came back and said he's hoping he could be in Boston for the next 10 years. I think what people fail to realize as well, Jaylen Brown is a big part of that Boston community as well. Like I think he's like built courts for kids. He's done stuff with businesses there. I feel like he feels like he's part of it, but it's also a business. So if some team called Brad Stevens was like, "Hey, I'll give you 5 first-round picks for Jaylen Brown," you know, Brad Stevens probably does it. I don't know. That's kind of with anybody.
I would say
Nobody in the league is untouchable. Maybe SGA or I guess Joker, we would think, but who knows?
I definitely think Joker and SGA. Yeah, there's like a very small group of untouchable guys, but yeah, no, unless Brown or Tatum themselves are requesting a trade and refuse to suit up next year, then
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see him again on the Celtics.
Yeah.
It's funny though.
Okay.
I got to admit though, it's funny how it's always Brown and Tatum.
Yeah.
Like you get a kick out of it. What about guys like Jokic and Jamal Murray? Like, are we not exploring Jamal Murray trade talks? I feel like that's more reasonable than exploring some of these other trade talks.
Right. Yeah. That's where I'm kind of at as well. And that's usually my pushback to a lot of people is take whatever your favorite duo is in the league, and they probably haven't done half of what Brown and Tatum have done. So don't understand the fascination with splitting those two up. I mean, the Joker Murray one is absolutely one that should probably be explored this offseason, if anything. Like we saw a visibly frustrated Joker. Like this season, we've seen more unhinged Joker than we have in past years. That's probably a sign to Denver that gotta fix this. Because Joker's also the type, if Denver frustrated him enough, he would feel very comfortable walking away with plenty of good years left in him.
Oh yeah, let KD go to
Let
the
KD go to
Clippers.
the Clippers. Ballmer probably would do it, you know. Who wouldn't want to see those KD Kawhi nights if they're on the court together? But yeah, I mean that's kind of all we had for you. Uh, I guess hopefully you're enjoying the playoffs because I know before the playoffs started there was this conversation about let's see if they can live up to March Madness. I feel like these NBA playoffs have been very entertaining. Like the one letdown series we probably had was Thunder Suns. Everything else has been entertainment to me. Yeah, yeah. I think every series
Hey,
other than outside of that was actually very good.
next year, 76 teams in March Madness, so we'll get even more madness.
Yeah, we're getting 24 in the college football playoff.
Hey, why
Seeing
not?
people freak out over those two, I don't get it. Like, look, March Madness, you could have 150 teams in it. People are going to watch for the brackets and all that. So this outrage over 76, I don't get it. The football playoff, they're going to 24. Oh my God, that's too much. No, it's not. It's going to be great. We're going to get matchups we don't normally see. Yeah, Kerm, it's going to 76 for the men and the women's. Shout out for the women as well. I think they're basically going to have it be like 64 in the field. No. How's it going to go? I don't know. There's going to be like an expanded first four. Basically, there'll be more teams added to that, fighting for a few spots in the field of 64. That's basically what they're doing in college basketball. College football playoff, how the schedule will work out. Uh, that part we don't know yet. I guess. Well, I think for it to work, they would start the season earlier because right now they start the college football season like the weekend after Labor Day. I think with this, they would start maybe like the last week of August, something like that. I think the season would start earlier, and then I think conference championship week might go away. So then you would push up the start of the playoff. I think that's how it would work. Weekend, yeah, I think like the weekend before the NFL season starts is where they would probably jump in. But they haven't hammered all that out yet, so we'll see. But I think on the face of it, 2014 playoff, not that big of a deal. The same way going from 2 to 4 didn't kill the sport, going from 4 to 12 didn't kill the sport, going to 24, they will be fine.
And I love how like freaked out some people are getting. Like, brother, if your team is that good, like, why are you worried about if they're like, I don't know, adding Marquette into the NCAA tournament? Like,
Yeah.
in all reality, like, if you believe that much in your team, who cares?
And those
Like,
teams are going to weed themselves out in, like I said, the expanded like first four. They're just going to beat each other up then, and you'll get the same 4 teams that come out of it. And it's just going to be the same tournament as usual. And for the playoff, it's like, yeah, they're going to 24. Guess what? It'll be more SEC teams, more Big Ten teams that make it. That's all that's going to change in the college football playoff. Isn't that what people want? To see the better teams? So that's what we're going to get. See matchups you don't see. I mean, I will say, when they talk about playoff expansion, I was one of those who said they should have gone to 16, and I said 24 would be a great spot to go to. Just saying. They
yeah,
probably want to stand past that, but yeah, I think 24 is not terrible.
no, I think it's a fine number. Yeah, go all in. Just everybody makes it.
I mean, look, wait until the conversations for like 32 teams start happening. Then people are really going to lose their mind. Because they'll be like, oh, you're basically taking like the whole top 25 and then a bunch of like mid teams. So what? Bring it on. I'd watch.
Just match March Madness 76 team tournament. Let's do it.
But that's a funny thing I've said. College football fans and college basketball fans are so different. College basketball, they love upsets. College football, they hate them. If you gave them Alabama versus Georgia every year in the title game, they would say this is the greatest thing ever. College basketball fans would celebrate like a George Mason versus UCLA national title game because they'd be like George Mason, great story. College football hates that. I don't understand how that happened, but that's just how it is.
I would absolutely be ecstatic if George Mason made a deep run.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like embrace it. And plus, like I said, college football, all 24 would mean is like maybe one year you get, I don't know, Penn State versus Nebraska in a title game. Okay. Power conferences will still dominate. But that's all we got for you. Appreciate all you for tuning in. I guess, Brett, you can let them know what they can look forward to later on tonight.
It'll be a lot of fun. We'll just talk some NBA playoffs. We'll probably comment on some of the ongoing game. It's gonna be a great time. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I will be back on here tomorrow, Passion and Precision. And you guys know Jory and I, and possibly Key. We'll see if Key can come on, but Jory and I will have a lot to talk about. We will talk about Jaylen Brown. We'll talk about some WNBA as well. Season does start tomorrow. I think this season is building up already as maybe the most entertaining. I'm just saying. There's a lot of good teams out there in the league, and I guess if you want to finally jump into the WNBA experience, this would be a good season to start watching. That's all I'll say. I want to probably bring some of that on the ball as well.
Oh, fair enough.
So, but yeah, make sure you check out all the other shows on the network. Make sure you give the network a like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a review if you're watching on Facebook. Greatly appreciate it. So for myself, Brett, not guarding the 2, guarding the 3. We will see you all next week. Enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend, and we'll see you all next time. All right? Bye.